KMBC Youth. Ginnie and I thought we'd come tonight and just ask each other some questions and for you guys to get to know us better, but also I'm sure some church family members will be watching this as well. And you'll probably learn some interesting facts about Ginnie and I that probably you didn't know before. And so let's just dive into these. All right. So Ginnie, the question that I had for you is this. What is 2 things that most people don't know about you?
2 things most people don't know about me would be I enjoy singing the national anthem at sporting events, and I got to sing for the Charlotte Hornets game a couple of years ago.
Could you give us a couple of lines, maybe just like the first line? I mean, they want to hear you sing. I want to hear you sing.
Oh, say, can you see?
I just picture people now standing in their living rooms with their hands over their heart. What great patriotism. All right, there's one. Can you come up with something else that maybe most people don't know about you?
I really like figure skating. It's my favorite Olympic sport.
Not only does she like figure skating, the biggest fights we have in our house are around the Olympics. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and you had communist Russia. And it honestly, as a Carolina fan, it would almost be better to pull for Duke. And so in our house, she likes to pull for the Russian figure skaters. After she has just sang the national anthem, all that patriotism went downhill right there. All right. So 2 things. You want to ask me the question now? Go ahead.
They know what the question is.
Oh, okay.
Heard the question.
Okay. Well, 2 things most people don't know about me is this. One, I grew up at the beach, and so as a teenager, I had really long hair that was down to about right here, and it would curl up in curls, and so my mom would have to take perms because she was a beautician and straighten my hair out because it would just curl up like in little curls. And so I had long hair and I surfed. And I was a skateboarder somewhat, but more of a surfer. The second thing is I can take my tongue and touch my nose. See, I know you want to see it. I can do it. And so Ginnie, it grosses Ginnie out, which I find even better. I can't believe I just shared that with the whole entire world. Anyway, all right. And man, I need to wipe my nose now, but they said we can't touch our face. Anyway, all right, I'm all in a mess. All right, so let's get this thing over with. Life verse. What's your favorite life verse or your life verse?
Psalms 19:14, which says, "May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be pleasing in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer."
Excuse me, guys. We're outside, and man, there's people building all around us. So if you hear the vehicle, I apologize. My favorite life verse is Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understandings. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your path. King James version there, because I learned it in the King James. A new life verse I've had in probably the last couple of years is probably Romans 8:28 and 29, which means that if we're called according to His purpose, all that we are going through is for our good, and it's conforming us to the image of Jesus Christ. That's just something I've applied to my life probably the past 5-6 years. All right, Ginnie, this is Ginnie's question. And I'll let you ask me first at this time. How about that?
Who is your favorite Bible character besides Jesus?
I didn't know there were any other Bible characters besides Jesus, because Jesus is always the answer in Sunday school. But if I had to give my favorite Bible character besides Jesus, it would be probably the Apostle Paul. I can identify with Paul. If you read a lot of the New Testament where Paul wrote majority of it, Paul was very cut straight to the point. And I envy Paul. I mean, he's a man that just preached the gospel unapologetically, and because he preached the gospel unapologetically, a lot of times he got thrown out of the places he preached and got run out and almost killed because of the gospel. And I appreciate a man that's willing to preach the word of God and not compromise it. And he had a life-changing experience, kind of like I didn't have it exactly like him. I didn't have a Damascus Road experience, but I went from a sinner that was definitely on their way to hell, that was not living for Christ, and I had a transformation. And anyway, so I kind of relate to Paul. What's your favorite Bible character, I guess, besides Jesus?
Well, he stole mine, so I'm not going to say
that's the benefit for going first.
The Apostle Paul, but probably my second favorite besides Jesus, would that make it my third favorite? Anyway, would be Ruth, because she was in a position that nobody would want. Her husband had died, and her mother-in-law was leaving and going back to her homeland, and Ruth chose to go with her and chose to make God her God and chose to make Him the one in charge of her life.
Awesome. Well done. All right. Favorite thing about living in Kinley? You want to go first? Or you want me to go first? Because I don't want to steal your answer.
You can go first.
My favorite thing about living in Kinley, and I do mean this, is the people. I mean, everybody you come in contact with, whether it's at the local track, whether it's at Parks and Rec, whether it's town officials, whether it's the people, members of Kinley Missionary Baptist Church. I haven't found anybody who's really mean at this point. Everybody seems to be very nice. And so I would say my favorite thing about Kinley is the people of Kinley.
I should have gone first.
See?
He took mine. But my second favorite thing about living in Kinley is the truck stop. I really enjoy being able to get Taco Bell and Wendy's and Dairy Queen and Pizza Hut all in the same place. I just think that's fantastic.
I can't believe you didn't mention Storm and Norman's. You know they're watching.
I'm so sorry. I do love Storm and Norman's, but I am a girl that likes tacos and ice cream in the same meal.
She also
Truck
likes an
stop.
upset stomach at the same time, too. So we love you, Storm and Norman's. All right, shout out to you guys. All right, a most embarrassing memory ever. What's the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you?
Well, I have two.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I couldn't decide because they were both really embarrassing. But when I was a junior in college, I had gone to the student center where they had this little grill place, this area with couches, and I was with my friends, and we were just talking and laughing, and I laughed so hard that I peed in my pants.
You just shared that with the whole entire world.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, wow. I'm impressed. Go ahead. Mine's not nearly that embarrassing.
And my second one was I was teaching. It was my first year teaching, and I had bought all these new clothes to look professional, and I was a music teacher, and so I was standing up and conducting the band and sitting down and playing piano for the choir and up and down all day. And I looked down halfway through the day, and my pants were ripped, and no one had told me. No one.
I love your honesty. I think that's what everybody else loves too. My most embarrassing moment, there's one that just really sticks out.
I've got lots.
I
I
know.
can share.
That's okay. I don't want your embarrassing moment.
No, about you.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll let you share one when I get done. Yeah, it's fine.
No.
I've got one embarrassing moment that sticks out way above everything else. It's the most I've ever been embarrassed. I was in church one Sunday, and this was a rather large church me and my family were attending. It was in the Southport community, and the average attendance there was 500. It had rained that morning, and so my mom had used an umbrella to get us from the parking lot to the church, and we're sitting there in the middle of the sermon, and I'm in the balcony, and I'm fidgeting with this umbrella, and all of a sudden, the umbrella opens up. The pastor stops mid-sermon, looks up at me. My mom is trying to get the umbrella back down. I'm trying to get the umbrella back down. I am as red as I wanted to crawl underneath the pew at that point. It's an unforgivable moment that I don't think I'll ever get over. I'm still traumatized by it today. Umbrellas, I won't even get near them at this point.
I've never seen you open an umbrella.
That's because I stay away from umbrellas. Who as a youth, you grew up in youth, and I don't know about the church you grew up in, but I didn't have a youth pastor in the church I grew up in. They were not a thing. It was not a profession you went into. A lot of churches that were a lot larger had them, but we didn't have one. Who influenced you as a youth besides your parents more than anybody?
That's a good question. Well, growing up, we had about 7 different youth pastors during the time I was in youth,
She grew up in a big city, by the way.
From 6th through 12th grade. So there was a lot of transition. There was one youth pastor at a nearby church where we were not members, but we would attend to be part of the youth program, and his name was Ken Tilley, and it still is Ken Tilley unless he changed his name. And he's now a senior pastor in that area, but he just really took the time to invest not only in me, but in the youth that were coming to the program and just find out what was going on in our lives, encourage us to be on mission. And probably the second person would be my Sunday school teacher when I was in 7th or 8th grade. He and his wife would invite me to their house, and they would feed me, and he was a musician, and he would invite me to sing and play along with him, and that was just really important to me because it showed me that they valued me as a person and my interests and wanted to help me grow.
I'd probably say growing up, I had a lot of influences, so I don't want to start calling out people because, just so many people poured into me as a kid. I was very blessed to grow up in, and we only stayed at that big church. After the umbrella thing, we didn't stay long.
They kicked him out.
They kicked me out, and I wanted to leave. And so, anyway, and so I didn't stay there long. We went back and we ended up at a small little church that I grew up in. And as a youth there, they didn't have a youth pastor, but they had 2 individuals, Dolores and Greg White. And these individuals on Sunday, they would call all the boys together, and we would go play football, or we played basketball. He was taking us to trips to see Charlotte Hornets, and he really influenced me, and Miss Dolores influenced me, and they walked through a hard time with me as well. Betsy and Perry. They were Sunday school teachers that came along later that kind of influenced me and helped me, and I thank them for that. I could also go back to growing up. I had parents. I mean, I just hate to start calling so many names. So many people invested, but I would want to mention my mentor Richard Hicks and Miss Brenda. Guys, I was lost. I thought I had said a prayer as a kid. I have touched my nose. It's just bothered me. Anyway, as a kid, growing up, I made a profession of faith, but I really didn't change my life. And a man by the name of Richard Hicks showed up at our church, and he just started preaching the word unapologetically. And honestly, he has probably had a lasting influence on me. So I was probably in my 20s when he came along, but because of him, I found Jesus, and because of this pastor just preaching the word and loving on me, I was called into ministry. And as I went into ministry, he just kept on loving me, encouraging me, encouraging the church to send me money while I was away at college, sometimes when I needed it. I want to give a shout out, and Miss Brenda still to this day, she watches my sermons sometimes, and she'll call me and critique me and say, you need to do this, and I always listen to Miss Brenda because you don't want to be on Miss Brenda's bad side. So shout out to Miss Brenda and those people. And like I said, there's a lot more, guys. I had the whole entire church at Mount Pisgah growing up really poured into me as a kid. That was one of the great things about growing up in the youth group I had, and then being in the church I was in. It wasn't just one individual, it was a collective church. So I give a shout out to all of Mount Pisgah Baptist Church back in Supply, North Carolina, and the difference you've made in me. And the ministry I have now is because of what y'all did for me as a child, letting me play saxophone in church when I squeaked really bad and on up. And so I give a shout out to them.
That's no fair. You can't give a shout out to a whole church.
Look, dude, it took a church for this Varnum.
True story.
Okay, so let's give props where props are due. Okay, one last thing we got for you guys, because we don't want this to be too long, is one thing you would want the youth to know from you. What's if you could communicate one thing to the youth today, what would that be?
Being a youth is hard. Middle school and high school, I would not want to repeat those if I could. Those were some hard years, full of some hard things that I don't want to go back and relive. But we are here for you 24/7. We are willing to talk. We're willing to come get you if you ever need somebody to come get you out of a situation. We are willing to pray with you, pray for you. We want to love on you, and we want to be a part of your lives so that when you look back on your middle and high school years, you look back and say, you know, they were hard years possibly, but God did some really awesome things. We want you to be plugged into the church. We want you to know that KMBC folks love you. There are people that you don't even know, but who know you and are praying for you by name.
Wow, well said. I mean, you're so elegant. And then there's me. And so I guess if I had one thing I'd say to you guys is this, is above everything else, I want you to know that Jesus saves. That's the most, I think, important message I could ever give you is the message that was given to me, which is the gospel, and Paul would agree with that, which is my favorite biblical hero.
You stole him.
Anyway, and so I'd say that, but the second thing is, man, I just want you guys as youth to know that I love you, that I care for you guys, and that I want to pastor, I want to lead you guys through this just like I lead the adults. I would concur with what my wife said, that what Jenny said, that if you need us, we're here. You can email, call, text. You can also, if you get in a situation, feel free to call. Honestly, Jenny's background, as you get to know her much, she was very clean. I don't think you really even kissed anybody before I came along. And then on the other hand, you have my testimony, which is drastically different. And so whatever spectrum you come from, I think we could probably relate to you. And it's just amazing how God forgives and how Jenny forgave me for all I had done before she came along. And so one thing we just want to let you know is, you can bring stuff to us. It's probably not going to catch us off guard. And so, guys, we just want to let you know we love you. We're here for you guys. And that's a wrap.